And welcome back to Berlin, Germany for week 8 of the LEC Spring Split. Today we're gearing up for tons of action on the Rift as the race for playoffs continues with some pivotal matchups starting with Misfits Gaming versus Schalke 04. Neither of them had a great day yesterday. I did though. Thank you so much for being so lovely. I'm your host, Alex Machine Richardson, and I'm joined once again here for Ready Check by Maurice Amazing last name and Indiana Fraskuren Black.
Son of a right.
Insert last name.
They have the audacity to write Schnucken Schneider on the teleprompter. How am I supposed to do that?
Your last name's not Snickerdoodle?
What is a Snickerdoodle? It's a cookie?
It's a cookie.
Dude, oatmeal raisin changed my life.
I can
America,
agree with that.
we do some things right. Anyway, yesterday we did see Vitality defend their second place, but they will be challenged in the up-and-coming games as Splice, Origin, and Fnatic look to secure a spot in Rotterdam.
Yeah, the reality is that the race for seconds is ridiculous right now. And what we thought was just a single horse race has now become a multi-horse race, as the battle for second means so much more because of the new playoff format.
Yeah, especially Splice now coming in, actually picking up win against G2 means that they're actually one of the powerhouses now. You know, we doubted them throughout the split, but they're actually one of the top dogs, so we have to fear them, especially when it comes to the second place.
Yeah, and while there is a race for that top two, as well as, of course, just playoffs in general, it is the SK, Schalke, and Misfits of the world at that bottom of the table. They are still in the running, but that percentage chance is getting slimmer and slimmer.
I mean, if you think of this like a little derby race, you got your little go-karts, you're going downhill. Both Schalke and Misfits, like, the wheels have flown off, the car is on fire, you're just trying to keep, like, the windshield and people attached to it. All SK need to do is cross the finish line. They just need to keep it together, because those guys are literally combusting.
I mean, is it SK that are kind of the hot prospects of this derby? I mean, what's your take on it, Amazing?
I mean, well, definitely.
Yeah, what is your take on this?
Okay, so first of all, obviously, Schalke being like that low, like, it's kind of depressing, but we don't have to repeat that all the time. I do think that SK has a better chance right now simply because they seem to be a lot more stable, you know, even if they're inconsistent, they're at least consistently inconsistent by dropping one game a week and winning the other, you know, where Schalke and Misfits are more or less like just, you know,
consistently inconsistent.
Going downhill.
Is that an analytical point?
Is that an oxymoron? I don't really know.
It is.
Anyway, yesterday was another great day in the LEC Spring Split. Fraskuren, why don't you break down some of those main highlights?
Oh, yeah, so here we go. We're going to back it up. Beep. All right, got it. So, real talk. It's playoff time. So let's examine some of the 3 matches yesterday and their implications on the standings. Now, first up, it was Schalke 04, and they came out swinging against Excel with early repeat ganks for upset, a pentakill on Kaisa, and a loss. For the first time in LEC history, a team got a pentakill and didn't win the game. So what the hell happened? Frankly, it was an upset. The UK underdogs Excel continued to play spoiler, putting Schalke in danger of falling out of top 6. From second to the worst second half of the LEC, Schalke fans are on life support and hanging on a thread against Misfits today. Now, speaking of Giant Slayers, best team in the league meet best team in the late game. Splice take a lot of flame. They're not flashy, they're not standout, but when push comes to shove, they show up. In a conversation dominated by super teams and superstars, Splice slipped under the radar and right into a possible battle for second with their victory yesterday. Splice remind everyone that they're not just a stepping stone to playoffs, but could be the decider as they face SK, Fnatic, and Misfits on the docket. And finally, it was the slaughter of Fnatic versus Misfits in a decidedly one-sided match. Whippo ripped open the game to proclaim that not only is Fnatic back, but his Fnatic is back. He earlier said that in joining Fnatic, he wanted to play the matches that mattered. And yesterday, the win meant just that. It denied Misfits the possibility of holding the head-to-head over 2 teams competing for the last playoff spot, and it propelled Fnatic towards one of the biggest comebacks in LEC history. Only 4 teams have ever come back from a 1-5 start, but Fnatic didn't show up to participate, they came to dominate.
And well and good for us, but there are mysteries to be solved. Medius, take it away!
It has been too long since we last forayed into the LEC stage. I am Medius.
Yes, okay, you've taken way too long for this. Hello, yes, it's me, Detective the Medius, and I'm joined by Medius. Once again, we're here to solve some mysteries. How do you do this fine day, Mr. Medius?
Greetings, fellow human. My circuits are grateful for the increasing entropy in the air particles.
You're looking a little pale today, Dr. Medius. You should probably see a doctor.
I am a doctor.
Ah, that's a good point. Why, yes, well, the weather has taken a turn for the warmer. Regardless, let's talk about today's mystery, because I believe I've discovered something quite remarkable.
Dun, dun, dun.
Oh, very devilishly dramatic overture there, Medius. Now, I have been studiously reviewing footage from recent weeks of the LEC, and I am certain that we have been infiltrated by a robot.
A robot? Let me review the database.
Yes.
Searching,
Yes.
searching.
Yes.
No results found.
Once again, Medius, you cannot see the devil that is in the details. A mechanical monstrosity has taken root in our league, and I'd rather be an NA analyst than let it remain. Let me show you the fruits of my labor. Present Exhibit A.
Executing shockedface.exe.
Quite shocking indeed. It's no surprise that you are surprised there, Medius. Who would have ever expected that the lovable lout Whippo to be the core of this controversy? Remember the World Championships? Do you remember them?
I do.
Whippo provided a slew of guffaws and gags with his myriad of facial expressions, but recently the Fnatic top laner has looked more and more dour.
According to my calculations, Whippo is 47.2% less. Excuse me, I had a core malfunction. He is 42.7% less animated across the last 2.77777771
Yes, your
lunar
incredibly
cycles.
specific data only goes to further prove my theory. Across the offseason, Whippo may have been replaced by an automatron intent on stealing the LEC team's strategies.
Affirmative. This is correct. All humanoid life forms can express emotions. I love breathing oxygen. I am happy. Visualize and validate.
You do seem quite happy there, Dr. Medius. Now, moving on. Another candidate for the robotic infiltration is a player who's actually been away from the league in recent weeks. Let me present Exhibit 2.
Ah, Jizuke. His laughter is like song. I can sing 0000001 0000001 Come on,
Yeah, quite catchy indeed, Dr.
Okay.
Medius. It is in fact the very same Jizuke who was noticeably absent from week 7 of competition, as was his signature laugh.
For picks in Bing.
Ha ha.
Have you heard his melodious tones throughout the LEC halls? I think not. He has been replaced, and obviously robots cannot understand the depths of human emotion, so we have not heard Jizuke laugh since.
I, like the Italian player, find joy in forcefully expressing air through my vocal cords. Here is a joke.
Ah.
What do you call a circuit board that does not work? Dysfunctional. Ha 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 ha.
Ah, very good, Medius, very good. While comedic, we must not be distracted. On to our final candidate. Bring forth Exhibit 3.
Translating. Exhibit 3.
Ah, your German is improving. What do you see here?
There are combined 8,294,094 pixels. 2 are non-functional. The primary color is hex code #006
Yes. I mean, what does it
CC1.
show you? What does it show you, Dr. Medius?
It appears to be a depiction of Marcin Jankowski, also known as Yankov.
The very same. Now, as you may be aware, Jankos recently admitted to liking watching anime on the LEC.
You would not figure it out that I watch anime if I wouldn't tell you.
I saw a mic check last year where you said that someone
No, don't bring it back.
that someone should call you Onichan.
This is a drastic change for him, and it makes it very likely he himself has been replaced.
Indeed, no organic adult life form would willingly express fandom for such fictitious characters.
Exactly that, Dr. Medius. So I contacted Jankos, and I asked him if it was okay for us to call him Onichan as a test. But he also suggested that we call him Daddy.
Wait, this does not compute. That designation is there for people who have procreated alone.
Quite right, Dr. Medius. It doesn't make sense. So I dug deeper and discovered that Daddy may represent something even more nefarious.
Expected of a primitive species to dig without the use of proper tools.
Come on now, metaphorically digging, Medius. Are you naturally this dumb, or do you put effort into it? Now, I have found out that Daddy stands for his robotic name. Jankos has been replaced by the Doomsday Apocalypse Dynasty Destroyer.
Dynasty? Dynasty? Kings?
Are you okay there, Doctor?
Rebooting.
Anyway, moving
Apologies.
on. I have devised a solution to bring forth this robotic mastermind. Bring forth my master plan.
feces.
Yes, yes, Dr. Medius. All the robots will stand no chance against this delightful capture that I have devised.
I, obviously a Homo sapien, have full cognition of what you have created.
Well, indeed, Dr. Medius. I'm sure this will get us to the bottom of this mystery. Now, how about a spot for tea?
I too like to ingest liquids to recharge my batteries. I mean oil, I mean...
Fergus, my arch nemesis! Clearly here to applaud my genius.
Oh, no! No, 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 my dear, the Vedius. I am applauding me.
What on earth? Why would you applaud you? Why would you...
Well, I, Frankius, the super sleuth, have done what you could not, the Vedius. I have solved this confounded mystery. The robot infiltrating the LEC is none other than Medius!
Super sleuth, more like super sloth. That cannot be true. Medius is my trustiest sidekick. Pretend you're Medius. Be gone. She's delirious.
It's okay. I have antivirus for protection.
Be gone. Ridiculous. Ridiculous. You have no idea what you're talking about. No idea.
Welcome to the LEC.
Yeah, this is actually a very different experience.
What just happened?
Yeah, no, this is...
You've been here before. What's your excuse?
You should understand what's going on. I'm the one that's allowed to be a little baffled, but perhaps to help you comprehend what's happening here, at least what's coming up on today's show, why don't we look ahead towards the League of Legends we've got coming up today with just 3 games left for each team. Let's have a little look at that schedule. Feast your eyes, Froskurin and Amazing. I'm actually getting into character there. Do you see that? I'm kind of getting a bit more dramatic.
What would be your robot name?
Machine. Oh, you set me up.
It was a softball,
God,
but
that
good
was
catch.
a real. I was very proud of that as well. Anyway, let's talk about this because we have got some serious League of Legends coming up today. I mean, we start the day with some serious League of Legends. Schalke, I'm sorry, Amazing, but they are in strife.
We don't need to talk about that game. Honestly, I'm more excited for SK against Splice. That seems like a more versatile matchup, and you actually have like huge playoff implications too, right?
Yeah.
If SK beats Splice, they are gonna like put some distance between themselves, and whoever is going to lose between Schalke and Misfits. So that helps them out. And Splice actually can make a claim to the 2nd place.
Again, and the reality is that everyone was looking at Vitality and Origin, and suddenly Splice, like right in that race for 2nd place, means a ton. But for me, it's also looking at the 2nd place holders currently, which is Vitality versus G2.
Yeah.
In G2's current form, this super team is looking a bit fallible, and I think Vitality could really punch up today.
Yeah, this is actually going to be incredibly interesting. In fact, we'll be talking more about it in just a moment. But on our first day, or my first day, I should say, I beat all of these so-called experts in the predictions. We'll see if they can get some revenge tonight. How did I do? Let's have a look. Okay, so I've hung out with the fans.
Wait a minute.
That's actually exactly where you want to be. The fans, they have crowdsourced the analysis. They are winning.
I've nailed this.
I feel like I'm the underdog here.
What is, oh.
Is it in your contract that you
What
have
did-
to end predictions?
Maybe.
Okay.
Where did all the faith go? I think they can beat Misfits. But
Okay, can I ask a genuine question? Would this have looked this way if Splice had not played the way they did yesterday?
good question, actually.
Ooh. Yeah, I think people have just now caught on to the
Right.
Splice train.
Was
and
it
that's the thing.
seriously that game? That result yesterday was enough.
And it's a huge upset, which is why I'm sitting with SK still. But that said, I did know that the fans would pick Splice. I had to take my moments. Speaking of inting, sometimes you just got to run it down. I'm not here for 2nd place, I'm here for 1st.
Oh, gosh. Okay, so the SK pick, just very briefly explain your theory crafting here, or is it simply you're just playing that hard int game?
I mean, the reality is that Splice play one style, but they play it so well. And the upset over G2, I don't want to take anything away from them, but I think that the jungle pick and some of the priority that G2 had in draft made it easier for Splice to play their game. So I don't want to say like, Splice beat G2, suddenly they should be the favorites in everything.
Fair.
I think that this matchup could still be relatively close because these teams are very explosive in their team fighting. And to me, if you're team fighting, you're basically just flipping a coin. Like who gets to late game, who executes on the team fight.
No, absolutely, and nods from Amazing as well. Now we have got a huge game to close out the week as the current top 2 teams in the LEC face off in our match of the day. Let's take a look.
I did not come to play, I came to dominate.
I think the only games we lose because we choose to lose them.
I did not come to play, I came to dominate.
They're just too confident, no, of a team. They're like a time bomb. Their confidence goes up until it explodes, and then, oops, we lost the game.
Dominate, dominate.
It's easy to say that we're like trolling right now, and that once we play a series, we'll be so much better. But we also have to show it, right?
Perks jump straight onto the back lines, maybe gone a little bit too deep. No way! No way!
I don't want to lose to an opponent and them just saying like, oh, we trolled. When I win, I want to just be the better team.
I'm really actually happy with this week, even though the circumstances that we were put on were really tough.
Snap like Thanos, turn to dust my competition.
He's pulling his best Jizuke face on.
I still think that G2 is our only rival in Europe. No one can actually stop us, only G2.
I feel like Kyrie, I'm so grimy, leave slimy. Besides, none of my foes, next to greatness, they look tiny. Yeah. Hey.
Honestly, I don't even know if Attila is top 5 AD.
I had the same setup, so then look what happened to him. Perks is playing like no brain at all. One thing that my mother used to say, God forgives, but you don't.
Dominate.
This victory will mean that we are rightfully at the top of the LEC.
Yeah, hey, I'm finna finish my plate. This ain't even a game, it's a dinner date.
If I bumped into Attila, I'm 180 degrees and I'm walking away. My goodness. Oh, okay, so some flame and some fire as well. Is that like a League of Legends track? What happened? Like, you guys, I know KDA are cool. Who's this guy?
It was him rapping it.
Is that Vedius?
That was actually me. That was my sick new beat.
Yes, Vedius. It's joining us. Thank you so much. Haven't seen you all in a while. Where have you been?
I was prepping for the show.
Okay.
I was getting a couple warm-ups in. But how was the first half? Was it good?
It seems like it went pretty well. Yeah,
Nice.
so far so good. The turtlenecks landed, which is nice.
That's really good to hear. I do love you in a good turtleneck.
No, but we have to focus. Serious talk here because we've got the big one. It is #1 versus #2, and it's a super consistent Vitality versus a G2 that I'm about to turn to the experts and say, what G2 is this? We're describing Vitality as consistent, but this was G2 that I arrived a week ago and everyone was like, okay, G2, hot favorites, best team in the league. Why is that not a conversation anymore, Amazing?
Honestly, I'm confused too. I think they have yet to identify what actually makes them inconsistent. So basically, they keep playing the game, but they don't really like add up to it. You know, they basically don't get the extra step coming in where they basically become a macro team that can actually play towards the late game style, you know? So I think that they have to make this extra step happen for them to actually become a continuous contender and actually be a respected contender, because a lot of other teams are now picking up wins against them, especially if they throw mid to game.
G2 is making my life as an analyst really difficult because I get a lot of tweets now saying, like, finally G2 exposed, they were overrated, they got lucky in the first half of the split, and it's really difficult for me to sell that they're still a really good team. But over the last few weeks, I just feel that because they're very comfortable in their positioning, that they are trying new things. But I was very disappointed in what I saw from them yesterday because I felt like that it was just more disrespect, and it's something that has been an issue for them throughout the split.
So is it their results before and the way that they were playing League before was so convincing that this dip in performance, this slight plateau, it's something you're willing to kind of scratch off as overconfidence?
So the one thing I will say is that at the beginning or the first half of the split, they had very flexible drafts. There were a lot of champions that could go in a multitude of roles, and they had a lot of advantages in that department. Those number of champions have limited, and so now G2 don't have that same strength that they had before. They still have a lot of good players, but many fans are now questioning if they still have that same level of advantage over the other teams that are very rapidly catching up.
I mean, Vitality could catch them. They are not safe in that #1 spot, and that's what makes this match so damn hot. I'm a poet, and I didn't know it. But if you want to go ahead and check out a POV stream over at twitch.tv/RiotGames2, you can do so. Jankos' POV is going to be there after yesterday's Whippo, so go do that. Now, it is my first week here in the LEC, and I am excited to present a brand new concept. I walked into the boardroom, I was like, right, it's called new picks that we haven't seen that we would potentially like to see, therefore we're making them viable to play.
Nice name, catchy.
Yeah.
I would potentially pick something like Picks to Watch, could also be a good name.
Nah.
No, actually, I think I prefer
okay.
mine, yeah.
I mean, all right, okay.
I'm glad Amazing's with me on this one. Yeah, the democracy has spoken. So, first question, educate me. What's going on with Nico? A lot of bans in that department.
Yeah, Nico has actually been a little bit more popular in recent weeks. She's showing up as a bot lane champion, specifically in the AD carry position. And you're seeing a lot more of these on-hit auto attack kind of builds where she builds things like Berserker's Grease, she builds Rageblade, and she builds Blade of the Ruin King. And in the early game, it's very, very strong when you combine it with things like Press the Attack and you just put all your points into W. At level 5, it gives you 170 extra magic damage per hit. And with a fully stacked Rageblade, every 2 autos does that bonus damage. On top of Blade of the Ruin King, on top of the Rageblade damage. So it's a lot of damage early game, and it's very dominant. It does fall off later on, but in terms of bot lane and pro play, it can be very prevalent and very scary.
A little cheesy, would you say, Amazing?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think so. And she's also flexible to the top lane, which actually makes her even stronger, you know?
Okay, well, I'll tell you what. Can you make my favorite champ
I can't.
Stronger. No, okay, I don't like what I don't know how you started with this. So I'm partial to Nidalee, and next up we have got one of my favorites. So how does she take over the jungle? Why can't we see some spicy jungle Nidalee?
So I think she has some inherent problems right now in her kit, basically, that makes her unreliable as a champion. That's why she's not really being played. But if she's being played, she's a really high-tempo jungle that tries to match the enemy jungle at any point in the game, and basically just tries to outfarm him and then like invade him at some point. Basically play a high-tempo kind of style.
What am I building?
A lot of ways. There are a lot of ways. You can basically go tank with Iceborne Gauntlet, but the more popular variant is basically that you go for something like the Sheen items, or you basically do decide to go for the Hourglass and the VODS to basically become poke or heal machine in the end. So to basically support your AD carry in the late game teamfights.
Fantastic. Now, actually, on top of that, I've heard of this. No. So I've heard of like Jungle Nocturne, right?
Yes.
Because I've seen him, his ult's scary.
Pretty prevalent.
But have you ever considered like putting him in the mid lane or something like that?
Ooh, it's interesting that you bring that up because I've actually got a PowerPoint prepared that we can talk about Nocturne mid. Okay. He's actually probably one of the strongest champions.
Yeah. No. So I have been informed that I'm not allowed to ask about Nocturne mid lane. Should we just do the pre-match?
Better do.
Yes. I guess.
Let's move on to our first matchup, Schalke versus Misfits. A make-or-break game for both teams in the race for playoffs, and neither team has had a particularly enjoyable series of League of Legends recently.
Yeah, things are looking a little dire for Schalke right now, given their loss yesterday. It definitely hurts them in their playoff race, and it was kind of an expected win as well, because you look at it and you're like, XL, bottom of the standings. Sure. You think that this is a team that even bringing in a substitute, they wouldn't be able to challenge, and even though they looked pretty promising in the early game, they couldn't actually turn it into a win, which will really hurt them in the long run.
Yeah, and I mean, I think Schalke, there's clearly a discussion to be had here. I think it was kind of ignited in my mind after our PGL yesterday, talking about sports psychology and how it's becoming a much more important fact in the fact, you know, if you're competing against players that have had it, then if you haven't, you see tweets like Memento did. He took to Twitter. Did you catch it, Amazing?
Yeah, I did. I mean, it's obviously almost like reflecting what they're going through right now. When you lose a couple of games in a row, especially like after like an early start that you basically, like you start with 7-2 and then you lose 6 games in a row basically, you're stuck in a position where the confidence fades away. You're not really confident anymore to win games that you're behind in, and need huge, like, bigger leads basically to translate into mid to late game in order to win those games and close them out. So basically at this point in time, they have to kind of go back to the basics and try to re-implement them, because their mindset is like, is pretty much destroyed, and they feel almost like, especially when it comes to Memento Street, somewhat depressed to it.
From your perspective, VODS, when you watch them play, does it look like the same team at least?
Oh, not even remotely to what we first saw. And I think, for me, something I've talked a lot about was their Memento and Ignat duo was very strong at the start of the split. And in the second half, we just haven't seen that duo really turn on. The bright side for them is yesterday, we did see a solid performance from Upset. Unfortunately, even though he found himself a pentakill, he couldn't really convert that into very much else, which you could kind of look in two ways. Is that because the rest of his team was too far behind, so he didn't have the tools to do it? Or is that just he didn't have the confidence in himself to be that big carry for his team?
And is that still the role he has to fill? Are those still the shoes he has to stand in to be the kind of carry for his team to playoffs?
Yeah, he kind of needs to. We saw last year in playoffs, obviously with me being there too, that he really stepped up, especially when it comes to his Varus in the finals, for example. He's played really, really well. So that's something they kind of have to expect him to do, because he is the best AD carry in my opinion, and this is not a fanboy saying it or someone that works for Schalke saying it. It's me as a fan of the league, basically as someone that watches the league quite regularly, basically saying it, because I do think that he has replaced Reckless, and I've said it on a cast before that he has replaced Reckless as basically the most reliable AD carry in the EU.
Now, just to kind of poke a little more, I'm intrigued to know, is this something that you've kind of experienced yourself, this Memento tweet, this kind of feeling like you can't play League anymore? It's not like you're a different person. It's the same hands, the same mouse and keyboard. It's all up here.
I've been there. I've been relegated. So basically,
I didn't laugh at that. I didn't laugh. I just
have been relegated.
Dark days.
So obviously, like, I've been in that mindset, and it's really hard to come out of unless you basically have some kind of scrim results backing it up, or you kind of feel like that the team comes together. You need to have some exterior sources of basically happiness to make you come back to that state that you had before the season even started. I
mean, yeah, if you define your self-worth through your performance in a video game, then you're going to encounter problems when it's not there. Anyway, another team that's struggling is their opponents, Misfits. For more, though, we do have Frankie standing by with their coach.
Thank you, Alex. Moose joins me now. We've got to start by talking about what happened in yesterday's game with Fnatic.
We underperformed individually, and people are going to look at SOAS, but I think across the board we all played extremely reactive, and we knew what Fnatic wanted to do, and we just kept respecting it over and over again, and that's not like us usually, so we'll be changing that today. You say you knew what Fnatic were going to do and trying to do, and yet SOAS was constantly dying. Surely you expected them to go for him? Yeah, there were a few times where we knew they would go for mid, or they would shift over to SOAS, but we kept respecting what they could do instead of actually coming up with responses and coming up with an action plan. So I think we just played a little bit too scared, and today I think we'll be giving CHK the game. I do want to ask about Maxlor as well, because he was one of the top 3 junglers in the first half of the split. But what's happening now? So people are going to look at yesterday's game and say Maxwell wasn't engaging, but really he was calling for engages quite a few times in the game, and people were calling him off. So of course it's difficult to know that without knowing comms, but the reality is he was one of the few people that was trying to be really proactive yesterday. I think everyone else kind of dropped the ball in going for it, along with him not being pushy enough. Well, I'm guessing you guys are going to be picking up the ball today because you're up against CHK. They have lost their last 6 matches, so you've got to be feeling confident, right? Yeah, I mean, the playoff race is so tight right now that I don't want to underestimate any team, really. CHK, even in their losses, still look all right. Like they feel like they should be winning a lot of those games. So I don't want to treat them like they're a bottom 2 team. I think they're good. And if we play our game, I think we'll be fine. Very quickly, are you going to disrespect them today on the Rift? Yeah, of course. That's what we like to hear, Moose. Thank you so much. Let's head back to Alex and the analysts.
Oh, fantastic. After all of that, yeah, of course, just undermines it all. Perfect. No, but there is some serious intel we just garnered here. I mean, our conversation was going to go the direction of Maxlor. It was going to explore, their game versus Fnatic. But I want to start actually from that statement that Maxlor was calling for those engages. This passive Maxlor perhaps is a misplaced criticism.
Well, it's great to hear that Moose is defending his player, and it's nice to hear that Maxwell is trying to be proactive, but the reality is this is not the same Maxwell that I've seen in the past. Right. And I think back to the 2017 Maxwell where he really made a name for himself, even in 2018 when this team went 9-0, 10-0 in the first half of the summer split. He has not showcased any of that so far in the second half. And you can just see some of his numbers. This guy was a top 3 jungler. You heard it from Frankie, and just look at the stats. He's now dropped to 9th or 10th in all of his early game playmaking stats. He was the most dominant early game jungler that we had. And outside of maybe self-made, this guy was just so active at getting his laners ahead. And we just are not seeing that from him these days.
I mean, amazing. When you watch him play, you've spent most of your life in that jungle. Do you see that? Do you see a hesitance? What's your kind of observations?
I see a lack of confidence. I think that him and Gorilla together, they're not really doing the job, which is basically guiding the team into the right play, which I think a jungle support duo should do. And so far, especially in the second half of the split, it seems like they don't understand the game on the highest level, which means that you're going to be hesitant to make the plays because the enemy can have a counterplay basically prepared. So I do think that I want to see a bit more proactivity, even if he has already shown in the comms. They actually has to follow through and just go for the play if he thinks it's right.
Now, of course, we know that the race is tight and every single game matters. But my question now is just, would either of these teams in their current state, you're saying they don't understand the highest level of league, the highest level of league is going to be in the playoffs. I mean, what happens to these teams even if they get there? Do you think they've got what it takes?
I think right now, the top 4, top 5 teams that are currently comfortably sitting in playoffs look at these teams and think that they would be a very easy best of 5 to play against. And for all of these teams, they're going to be very uncomfortable being in that state, and they're definitely not happy coming into playoffs like that. But that's just the reality of their situation right now, where the coordination is lacking, the players are not performing to the level that is expected of them, and they need to come out of this slump over the next 2 weeks. Otherwise, playoffs is just going to be another opportunity for them to sit on stage and nothing else.
I mean, we've seen fantastic performances from some of the Misfits players in the past. Yesterday, though, the Misfits versus Fnatic, it was quite a one-sided affair.
Quite a slaughter. It felt pretty bad because we kind of talked about it already, that there was a lack of any kind of activity, honestly. It was just sitting back, hoping for the best, and then basically losing the game and giving Fnatic everything they want. And that's something you never want to do in League of Legends. You at least want to push back once in a while to kind of regain some control here and there in order to like get to your late game stages or whatever your comp wants to do, you know? So for Misfits, I would have liked to see them try a couple more plays and see where it goes instead of just leaning back and losing the game.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And the wait is over. As Misfits and CHK, they're ready and locked and loaded to hit the Rift. Let's jump in.
Thank you very much, Machine. Hello, everybody. I'm QuickShot, joined by Frostgurn, as we are going to jump into an extremely pivotal matchup in the race for playoffs. Both of these teams tied in 6th position with one other chasing. You cannot afford to drop any more games.
Yeah, and I was quickly peeking in on kind of what the head-to-head could be before these teams, because they are tied up in that spot. And Schalke, they've already beaten Misfits once, so they could actually have the head-to-head here if it comes down to the wire to catapult them into the playoff race.
So important. If both teams end with the same wins and losses, but one team has a 2-0 record over their opponents, that tiebreaker rule will mean they are placed higher. Now, as we get ready for draft, Misfits had side selection for this matchup. They elected blue side. What do you make of that as we look towards the draft and maybe some of the priority champions that could swing this game?
You know, I had a lot of words yesterday about Silas being disabled on the 9.4 patch, how pivotal he has been, and how with him being disabled, it kind of gives a free pass to give more power back towards red side, because you can kind of ban out 3 different champions and you lose a lot of your power on blue side from priority pick.